So I've been looking through all of these old Facebook posts that I've put online for the last couple years now, I guess. Just noticing how I don't even know what I was thinking at the time. It just came out of me and felt inspired in some way to be posted. Something what was bringing me a lot of joy and just sharing, uncensored sharing. Looking back on them, I can totally see how I can be perceived as, um, yeah, completely neurotic. And in many ways I am, just like we all are in our own ways. It's kind of seeing this back and forth of the human dynamic, this resisting of the back and forth of the I know, I don't know. I am, I'm not sure. I want, I don't want. I shouldn't want. This flip-flop of the dynamic of always like being peaceful and happy when one was attained and then feeling this like sense of frustration when that peace was lost or perceived to have been lost. So it's kind of comical in a way to just reread through them and see how, yeah, from this place of where I'm at, I can see how others related to them as being a very neurotic way of being, or anyway, I guess what's shifted within me is just this spaciousness to even allow that to be as it is, to be seen as neurotic, and that's okay. How another perceives what feels inspired from me, that energy of needing to defend it in any way or prove that that wasn't the case or that's not who I am, is gone. Well, for the most part, it's not there. It's just a freedom to be and express, indifferent to the reaction that I will get. Not in a way that doesn't consider the reaction of another and wanting to be in a loving place and considerate and kind to others. It's not that. It's it's taking responsibility for who I am and what I say and the impact that it may have on another, but not letting it restrict how I am. To use how I am to manipulate other people to affirm that for me, or not to use how I am, but to use all the images, or to use my words and actions in a way that subtly manipulates people to to have them affirm for me what it is I want to be perceived within myself, whether it be a kind person, a loving person, a wise person, a confident person, whatever those images and labels are. When we carry them into all of our interactions without even really knowing it. But it shapes how we are. We don't feel the freedom to just rest in our being when we're with another. We're in our minds thinking of how to be with that person instead of just being with that person. Because we believe that if we know how to be with that person in a way that can affirm what I want to see within myself, it's a good thing. That's what gives me peace and happiness. But really, it keeps us bound in our story. Then every time we relate to another, we have to live up to that idea that we now believe they have of us being a kind person, a loving person, a generous person, a wise person, a confident person. Because in truth, we're never one of those things all of the time. We're constantly changing and evolving from moment to moment, even. There is no one label that can just define us. And when we live that way, we see how much suffering it causes. because we feel uptight in our interactions with others, because we're trying to uphold the image. And in doing so, we're not really open to the love and to really seeing the other person because we're more concerned about how that person is seeing us, which seems very simple, but it's very profound actually, in shifting how we are with the other person to actually enabling us to lose our sense of self into the other person, to not be constantly thinking thoughts of how we're being perceived and what I should say in response to elicit the response that I want, and then replaying the conversation after in our minds, what they might be thinking of us or how that conversation went, or if they saw in us the wisdom that we wanted to portray. It's so much efforting and trying. It's too much for us. And when we just want to just be alone, not have anyone around us because it's too much. But when we see it's not, has nothing to do with the expectations of the other person that's too much. It's these ideas that we have of ourselves that we're constantly trying to have affirmed for us through our interactions with others. That is too much. That is the cause of the suffering and the efforting and the sense of not being true to ourselves. We can sense it when we relax and look within. We can see when we've deceived ourselves. We can deny it, but it's there and we know. And so if we can see, first we have to see the labels that we're carrying about ourselves, whether it be a fit person, a smart person, a successful person, whatever it is. We see those labels and how we use our interactions with others to have those labels affirmed for us. First, we just have to see it, and we don't judge it because we all do it in some way. We have some label that we're carrying. It's nothing inherently wrong with us. It's part of the human journey, really. But we have to see the unique labels that we carry and how they influence our responses to others and the way we are with others. And once we see it, then we can slowly begin to let it go. Something happens just in the seeing. It's not necessarily a trying to let it go because we can't. We can't just try to let something go. It seems like it should work, but it doesn't. We can have the intention to let something go, the desire in our heart to be willing to let something go. And in that, we just have to surrender it. So we see the action, we see we see the labels, we see how we use our interactions with others to affirm the labels. And then we can also see how it makes us feel, how disconnected in a way we end up feeling in the interaction with the other. Because we weren't true to ourselves, we weren't really with them. We were in our mind having a conversation with ourselves, most of it, trying to influence how we were perceived in the conversation, really seeing the other more as an object than anything. So when we see that too, particularly the suffering part, I think, is when we're finally able to come to a place of really wanting to surrender it, of seeing how disconnected it leaves us feeling, the feeling of needing to uphold these images, how stressful and angst-inducing it can be, how inauthentic we feel with ourselves, how we don't feel relaxed in our being. There's a subtle trying that follows us around. And when we can see all of those things, then the surrender becomes more a true desire of the heart, something that we really want. And if it's not something that we really want, we have to admit that too. I'm not ready to let this go. I'm too fearful if I let this go, if I allow myself to be seen in other ways as maybe not intelligent or not successful. That's okay too. We allow that to be. We just admit to ourselves honestly, which is one of the biggest aspects of this path from my experience and what I've observed hearing other people. It's just a very being very, very honest with ourselves, radically honest with ourselves. When we're deceiving ourselves, when we're not authentic, when we're trying to manipulate someone or get something from them, viewing them as an object. If we deny that we do these things, then we can never totally see them. We have to be honest and admit that we have these patterns, and they're not unique to us. They're not unique to us. They're an aspect of almost every single human being, probably every single human being, at least through some parts of their lives, unless they've come to a place of extreme freedom where they no longer have a story or any images. But we don't have to be to that place to find freedom. By being honest with ourselves and allowing it to be and trusting in the surrender process can be enough to allow us to relax into our being of where we are, even though these patterns that we may not like still exist within us. And there's grace will just unfold in its own time. And all those labels will be lifted as we're ready to let them go. When we're honestly ready to let them go. We've worn out all the energy of trying to maintain their appearance in our lives. And then we just are. We finally have this space to be, to allow all of us to be seen. We don't have a label that we're trying to maintain in our conversations with another, trying to be seen as wise or successful or super fit or whatever the story may be for us in particular. We can allow them to see us in other ways. They can have their own experience of us. That is where the place of authenticity, I feel, really lies, is when we can allow all of ourselves to be seen. When the labels fall away, then nothing has to be held back. We don't have to be any one way when we're with another. We can even be in our sadness and be with another and have a joyful, authentic experience that feels full of love. It seems paradoxical to the mind, but it's true. There's a joy when we allow ourselves to be as we are in the moment, even if it is in sadness, by just giving ourselves permission to be there and resting into it without resisting it and creating the story of how it's something bad and shouldn't be happening. Because that's just a story. It is happening. And it's part of the human experience to experience all emotions. It's not a good or a bad thing. It's just is. And that's when we fully come alive in our experience. We become our experience in many ways. Because there's no one in the background that's trying to manipulate the experience or think it's separate from the experience and treating everything like an object, trying to get its needs met. When we relax into our being, that's when it feels like we become the experience itself. There's no walls. We can totally be with another without any barriers, without any stories. And we can allow them to be as they are too, without needing them to be any way for us, to affirm anything in us or validate us in some way. They can just be. And that's okay too. It's really one of the greatest gifts we can give another, to give ourselves, is to allow ourselves to be as we are, and then to be able to share that with others and allow others to be as they are. No matter pain or joy or bliss or grief, confusion, neuroticism, all of it can be. We don't need to fix them, try to tell them there's something wrong with them, help them see the story another way. It doesn't need to. It doesn't need to be done. There might be opportunities for that to evolve, but we don't approach them with this belief that something's wrong if they're having what we perceive as a bad or a negative experience. It's a gift. May we give it to ourselves and then give it to all those around us. And that we will live a truly blessed life, full of love. Thank you.